Here are 3 true scary stories from Reddit. The links to the stories are in the description below. Enjoy. Number 1. This happened a couple years back when I was 19 and used to live in Long Island, New York. I had my close friends over at my house a lot to drink and party since my father was usually out until late in the evening. Sometimes he wouldn't even come home until the next morning. He used to spend a lot of time with his work buddies and have late night business related dinners. So this happened on a Friday night. My father was out and I decided to have a couple of my friends over to blaze and drink as usual. We had the music bumping and we were causing quite a ruckus. People walking by my house would clearly know there was a party going on. Anyways, as it got later and later into the night, my friends one by one started to head home. By 2 a.m., everyone had gone except my 2 close friends, Eric and Scott. The 3 of us were upstairs in my room playing video games and drinking some beers. Eric has this thing where he drinks a lot of water before going to bed after a long night of drinking. He claims that it helps him to not get a hangover the next day. He tells us he's going down to the kitchen for a glass of water. I replied, yeah, go for it, as I was in the middle of playing an intense video game with Scott. A few minutes later, I heard Eric talking downstairs and then heard a loud noise, but disregarded it because I was busy beating Scott in the game. All of a sudden, Eric runs into my room yelling at me, "Dude, get your bat! There's someone downstairs who tried to come into your house!" Scott and I were still buzzing from all the beers and pot we were blazing. I replied with something like, "What the hell are you talking about? Who?" Eric said when he was downstairs getting a glass of water, someone started turning the doorknob to the back door. Eric had the stairway lights on, so he didn't turn on the kitchen lights to pour himself a glass of water. I'm guessing the intruder didn't know Eric was in the kitchen. Eric initially thought it was my father coming home, as he always uses the back door. This has happened before. My dad would come home while my friends were in the kitchen. Also, we always keep the door unlocked. I know, stupid idea, but my family was confident our neighborhood was too nice for any intruders. So when this random intruder started to tug on the doorknob, Eric walked over to the door and opened it, thinking it was my dad. Instead, he saw a Hispanic man in his mid-30s with a black hoodie over his head, standing in the rain with a surprised look on his face. The strange man quickly spoke while looking into the house. "Are you guys having a party?" Eric replied, "No." At this point, we had already turned off the music and all my other friends had left over an hour ago. "Do you live here, kid?" Eric is a close friend, but in the moment, he felt threatened by this man and said, "Yes, I do." He slowly reached over to the door and slammed it shut on the stranger's face. He locked it and ran upstairs to me. After hearing this story, and fueled by liquid courage, we decided to grab weapons and run out looking for this asshole who tried to sneak his way into my home. I know, another stupid idea. It was pouring outside, so it made it even harder to see in the dark, but we didn't care. While running up and down the street, we saw a man with a black hoodie riding a bike at the end of the block. We tried to chase after him, but he was already too far. We screamed and yelled profanities at the man riding away, but I doubt he even heard us. We called it a night and headed home and went to sleep. A week later, this pot dealer I knew from high school told me about a weird Hispanic homeless dude wearing a black hoodie and riding a bike that was spotted behind a local convenience store where kids would smoke pot. The man claimed he was a Latin King gang member and showed off a 9mm pistol. He had said he was there to hunt down rival gang members. Then all of a sudden he started chasing a black man whom he claimed was a rival gang member. This creeped out my pot dealer so much and he left. Then my friend and neighbor Nick tells me his car was broken into and things went missing. This crime might not be related to the Hispanic man, but crime is just unheard of in my neighborhood. So it came as a shock to hear Nick tell me about that. I didn't tell anyone about the stranger in a black hoodie that was trying to break into my home. This taught me not to try and be a hero and chase after a stranger trying to break into your home. I'm just grateful we didn't chase down the crazy gangbanger with a gun. Number 2. I remember it was in 2016, and as the typical teenager, I usually went out with friends every Saturday until very late in the evening, or until the sun came up. So on one Saturday night, my friend Jordan wanted to order some pizza. It was almost midnight, so the Pizza Hut was closed. My other friend Lalo had the idea to go down to the 24-hour corner store that was just around 6 blocks down from Jordan's house. We all agreed, and Lalo, Jordan, and I wrote down the stuff we each wanted, as not to forget. Then Lalo and Jordan each handed me $10 and told me to go to the store. I asked, "Why aren't any of you guys coming?" In which they replied, "We're about to play a 1v1 on Call of Duty. By the time you come back, you'll be finished and you'll go against the winner." I thought that was dumb. I wasn't afraid or anything, so I accepted. I went out and made sure to close the door behind me. Fast forward 10 minutes and I'm about to pay for the junk food when a homeless man walks into the store. I didn't think much of it. I was handing my cash to the clerk when the homeless man tapped my shoulder and asked if I had any spare change. I did, but quickly realized that this wasn't my money to give. I looked at him and said, "Sorry, I don't have any spare change." This seemed to bother him. He said, "Oh, I see," and he walked out. I made my way out of the store and noticed the homeless man right next to a dumpster. I walked past him and made my way back to Jordan's house. As I was passing the second block, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around to see the homeless man walking only a couple feet away. I started to become a little frightened. 5 blocks down, and this creep's still behind me. 1 block to go, but I didn't want to go right to Jordan's because this creep would know where he lived. I decided to walk a couple more blocks down just to see if I would lose him or if he would walk in another direction. 7 blocks down, and the creep's still following me. Screw this, I thought. I'm going to turn around and walk past him to Jordan's house. I turned around and walked right past him. My heart must have skipped a beat when I passed right by him. Surprisingly, he didn't do anything. I walked straight to Jordan's house without looking back. I knocked on the front door and they opened it for me. I walked in, gave them their snacks, and started playing against Lalo. Around 2 a.m., I was still wide awake while the other two were fast asleep. I was still playing Call of Duty when I heard the sound of his back gate opening. I was curious and went to look through the kitchen window, only to see nothing but pure darkness. I turned on the backyard light and my blood ran cold. The same homeless man I saw a couple of hours ago was standing in the middle of Jordan's backyard, just staring at me, giving me the most uncomfortable smile I have ever seen. He was holding something in his left hand, but I couldn't make out what it was. I ran and locked both the front and back doors. When I ran back to the kitchen window, he was gone. I knew he was out there, somewhere, so I got a kitchen knife and just sat in the living room while Lalo and Jordan remained asleep on the floor. It felt like only minutes passed, but when I next looked at my phone, it was 4 a.m. I figured he must have left. I was extremely tired, and the last thing I remember was passing out and waking up at 7 a.m. My mom came, picked me up, and we drove back home. Hours passed, and I forgot all about the incident. Until Jordan messaged me. The message read, "Dude, you won't believe this. My mom was gonna get a shovel from the back shed so that we could plant the flowers we bought, and she saw a dude sleeping on the floor." My heart sank. I didn't want him to know about the incident, so I replied with, "Oh my God, really? That's crazy, dude. Are you both okay?" In which he replied with, "Yeah, my mom called the police and they took the man away." I was about to have a panic attack, but then I calmed down. After all, I was glad that no one was hurt or killed. I have never told this story to anyone, not even my parents. So, lesson learned. Never go out late at night, alone. Number 3. I'm a 13-year-old boy and live in the smaller side of a city in Estonia. It's pretty quiet here and nothing strange usually happens. It's 2 p.m. and I just finished school. I have a guitar lesson on Wednesday after school that lasts around 1 to 2 hours. I take the bus to my lessons and I was running late to the bus stop, so I booked it to get there on time. I made it just in time, but then realized I had forgotten my notes for the song I was to play in front of the whole class. I was so pissed off for forgetting such an important thing. I tried remembering all of the chords in my head, but I was drawing a blank. My guitar teacher was going to be such a dick that I even considered skipping the lesson and going back home. I decided to man up and went to the lesson anyway. That was the first bad idea. It started raining as soon as I got off the bus, so I pulled a hood over my head. I was approaching the entrance of my guitar school when I spotted a weird, 6-foot-tall homeless man wearing a red hooded jacket. He was just sitting in a puddle in the middle of the street, and I wondered if he was paralyzed or actually dead. I watched him for about 5 minutes and he never moved. I got a very unnerving feeling and entered the building. Once inside, I quickly forgot about the man and started playing my guitar. After 2.5 hours of sitting in that warm, sweaty classroom, we finished and I went outside. And to my surprise, the man was still sitting there and he hadn't moved a muscle. I was creeped out, but took a photo to send to my friends. The bad thing was, I had to walk past him to get some stuff at a gardening store for my mom. He's gonna grab me and do something with me, I thought. I finally gathered up enough courage to walk past him and into the store. Nothing happened. I was relieved that he didn't try to grab at my leg and drag me away. Then I thought, why would anyone do that, especially in front of a store that was packed with people and in broad daylight? I figured it was all in my head and that I was just being a very paranoid person. I bought what my mother needed from the store and headed home. As soon as I passed the guy, he got up and started walking directly behind me. I was freaked out and tried not to glance back at him. Then I thought, he must have gotten tired of sitting in the puddle and got up at the exact same time I passed him. He was just walking in the same direction as I, and it was all a coincidence. I got to the bus stop, and you guessed it, Mr. Sitting in a Puddle guy was standing right next to me and staring at me. Yep, you heard it right. I could see he was staring directly at me from out the corner of my eye. I didn't want to look at him, so I kept staring straight forward. After a couple of minutes, the bus arrived and I entered first. Then Puddle Man got in right behind me. He smelled like he had been living in a garbage can for the last month. I walked and sat at the back of the bus where there were fewer people and thus many free seats. And of course, he sat right next to me. I didn't want to switch seats to seem rude, so I bared his disgusting odor. I was really getting unnerved because he wouldn't stop staring at me and was literally breathing down my neck. I could smell and taste the stench of rotten eggs coming from his mouth. When the bus finally got to my stop, it was already dark out. This made it much more scarier than it already was. I had been sitting at a window seat and stood up to let him know that I wanted to get off. But he wasn't getting the hint. So I said, "Excuse me, I would like to leave. May you please get up or at least move your legs so I can get off the bus?" He didn't even flinch. Then I thought, he mustn't understand Estonian. So I said it again, but now in Russian. No answer, and he didn't move his legs or his body. He then turned and stared at me, and I saw his face. He had brown eyes and a long, dirty beard that was covered in cheese or something like that. He wore a baseball cap with many holes in it and a sweaty, very dirty Lakers t-shirt. I put my arms on the seat and jumped over his legs so I could get out. When I got off the bus, he got off as well and started following me again. It's a good thing my apartment was very close to the stop, so once I got off, I ran for my life to the front door. When I looked back at him, he was running at me like a maniac. Luckily, we have a door that locks on the outside automatically when it's shut. I threw open the door and closed it right as he got to it. He began banging on the door and was screaming incoherently at me. I ran straight upstairs to my apartment, which was on the 4th floor. I got in and started bawling my eyes out right then and there. My mom was home preparing dinner and I told her everything. She ran to the window that overlooked the main door and saw nobody. The scary part is, when my dad came home, he said he saw a guy in a red hooded jacket with a baseball cap wandering around on the 3rd floor. He said he was knocking on every door asking for me by name. My dad asked him what the hell he was doing. Then the man bolted down the stairs and out the door. Thank God my dad came home when he did, because if that man had gone one story higher, he would have knocked on our door. This is very disturbing to me, and I had some questions, like A, how did he get inside? And B, how in the hell did he know my name? I figured that he must have been stalking me, or asked one of my friends, neighbors, or family members for my name. So, to the homeless guy that stalked me and somehow knew my name, let's never meet again. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time.